Hello and welcome to In the Wings, a CTC podcast hosted by me, Scott Dunlap. Today I am talking with choreographer Jenison Eduave and music director John Echols for our upcoming production of Waitress, the musical. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
Okay, first I'm going to actually start with Jenison because I don't know very much about Jenison.
Of course.
I mean, you and I go back a ways.
True.
But Jenison, tell me just a little bit about yourself, like where you are from, how did you get here?
Sure. So I am a Chattanooga native. I am from Chattanooga, and I am currently a dance educator and choreographer. I have been teaching for the last 11 years here around the community, and I've been dancing for 21 years.
Wow.
Here in Chattanooga. So I started when I was 8. I started with Anna and Barry Van Cura at Valley, Tennessee, and I received all of my training as a young dancer with Valley, Tennessee. And then as an adult, I have danced with Weave Dance Company here locally in Chattanooga, and then started pursuing arts administration as an adult as well. So I'm currently at Baylor, and I am the dance teacher and artistic director of the dance program at Baylor.
So that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long have you been at Baylor?
This will be my 3rd year coming up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting back into that, I promise.
Okay.
Because I have some questions already about that. John, like I said, I already know a little bit about you, but for those who don't know you,
Yes.
who are you and how did you get here?
So I have been volunteering at the Chattanooga Theater Center since 2001. The first show I was in opened on Friday after 9/11.
Fun fact.
Fun fact and strange. It was directed, oddly, by Beth Gumnick, who's directing Waitress. So it's kind of a little full circle moment, or hopefully not the end of a circle moment, but around the loop again. And so I've been doing shows here since then. I've been in several shows, and I've been the music director for a couple shows as well. When I'm not here, I have been a teacher, but right now I work at the Creative Discovery Museum.
Nice. Good. What are you doing at the Creative Discovery Museum per se?
My title is Professional Development Coordinator, so I'm in charge of the professional development for the museum employees.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah. It's enjoyable.
That's neat. And it still has a little bit of education to it as well.
Very
which
much
is nice.
so. Yeah.
Very cool. And you were at CCA for a long time.
I was at CCA for 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is my 27th
I
year at the
know.
Theater Center. I know. I don't look that old.
You don't.
That's 'cause people are
Was it your
listening to
first show, Bye Bye Birdie,
No.
that you directed?
No.
Oh,
No,
thought it
I
was.
even went back further than that with directing. So,
Okay.
yeah. That wasn't even like my first main stage show because I think my first main stage show was Gifts of the Magi, which was a Christmas musical.
Yes,
So,
I know that show.
but Birdie was like my big big cast, big
Right,
deal.
right.
Yeah. But I had done a couple before that.
Cool.
Okay, so I want to ask you a little bit about like, I mean, I guess the question is, how do you see your role in Waitress? Like, you're the choreographer, but what does that mean to you? Like, how did you come about getting that role, and how do you see it in playing a part in the story?
Okay. I received the role through Beth Gumnick's reference. We worked together at Baylor, and we have worked together for a couple of musicals there at school. So she referred me to be the choreographer for this show, and I was accepted into the role. And this will be my 3rd musical that I've choreographed on my own. I've been a part of a couple. And then it's as far as my part in the show, I think that this show is unique in that a lot of the choreography is more pedestrian. A lot of it is gestural and subtle and smaller in how much you expand with your limbs and your movement. But it is a lot of musicals tend to have dance that is very expansive and energetic and upbeat and high energy, fast, a lot going on. This is just a lot less in your face dance technique, spins, turns, leaps, less technical and more close to pantomime in a way, in some ways. So I think it's unique in that way. So I think that I've been approaching it more in that way, trying to think about my approach has been different, my process. I usually choreograph in the studio in a mirror, very kind of technique regimented. But for this show, I've taken myself out of the studio, out of the mirror. I've been trying to get more internal with how you interact when you're sitting at a table with a guest, things like that. So my process has been different in this musical. I think my role in it as well is more, I think we talk about it being less for the actors to think about it more as movement and less choreography, if the word choreography intimidates them in a way.
Right. Yes.
Just trying to find movement that is natural to their own body. I think that's special for the actors as well because they have a lot of opportunity to showcase their individual style as far as how they move, and their personality can come out. Because in the show, they're all representing individual guests and different people. In some musicals, the dance requires you to take on all of the same character or the same personality or things. So it's a unique experience for me in choreographing in this musical.
Well, you said something I think also, like when you said pedestrian, I think I understand what that means is like it's less technique. It's less being able to actually do a pirouette or a grand jeté or any of those big ballet words. More akin to like modern dance. When I was in college, I loved that. And it's really beautiful in a different way. But also, what really stuck with me and what you were talking about is it's reminiscent really of Greek theater, which all of this stems from. With the Greeks, it was about gestures together. I mean, it seems like the stuff that I did in college, and I've done a little bit here and there. Yeah, this might be surprising to listeners at home, but Greek theater is not really big, so not a lot of people do it. But like when you have an ensemble and they all move similarly, and then they all have one grand gesture that is like really powerful, and it's really beautiful in a different kind of way. It's exciting in a different kind of way too, I think. So, and is this like in your comfort zone or is this stretching you? What do you feel?
I think it's stretching me quite a bit, in a great way. You know, you always love a challenge, but the first two musicals that I did were very much kind of more of that in your face. This is a dance number.
Like what were your musicals?
Legally Blonde was the first one I ever choreographed on my own. And then Beauty and the Beast.
So those are very, are very traditional almost.
Traditional
musicals.
is a good way to put it. So even in my background, I think I have a traditional technical background. So I think all of that comes into play when trying to choreograph a much more subtle type of movement throughout the show.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things you've done that's really interesting is every time the ensemble's on stage, she's told them they have to be a different person.
Okay.
So you're not Belle the whole show, or you're not LeFou the whole show, or you're not Sabrina, right? You're in this scene, who are you in this scene, and how does that impact your movement? Which I think is really interesting as an ensemble member.
I would think it'd be fun too.
Right.
Also, it's good. Just side note, I'm costuming the show, so that's also something good to know, that we're all different people every time we see you.
Right.
We'll talk about that on our production meeting later.
Right, of course.
But no, that does make it really interesting. I would think as an actor, I don't think people realize, especially in the ensemble work is the hardest stuff to do. I mean, you're at more rehearsals sometimes than even the leads. You know, you get a lot of attention. I mean, we work on a lot of things together, whether it's vocally or movement-wise. But then, you know, you get into Tech Week and you're moving set pieces and you're changing costumes and you're becoming 17 different people. You know, and it's a lot of pressure. But that I think that would be exciting. I think I think I try to do this is to have individuals in the ensemble anyway. Like oftentimes I give people names, even though the script doesn't. You know. Just because it gives you, everybody wants to be somebody else. I mean, that's why we're doing this, right? Like, you want to show up and put on somebody else's clothes and walk around. Well,
True.
why do it otherwise? Which brings me to you, John.
Okay.
So tell us about the music director's role. What does that mean, and what does that mean to this production? How does it differ in this production?
Right. So the music director really has two jobs. One is to teach the vocalists their music and make sure they can sing it and they know notes and rhythms and all that technical musical stuff. And sometimes this show is not difficult musically. I think it sounds like what we hear on the radio. So
Sort of pop music.
Your ear, you hear it quickly. And if the tricky part of it is when you write down pop music into a score, the way you have to write it into music makes it look more complicated than it really is. You feel it. If you just hear it and feel it, it's easier than actually if you're trying to count and read the notes off the page. So that's one of the jobs of the music director. And then the second job is to create the band that will play for the shows, which is two different paths that eventually converge in one place. Fortunately for this show, people want to be in the band. Like people asked me, could I be in the band? So that's already established, which is unusual for me. I usually don't do that first, but that happened first this time.
Right. Like as soon as people heard we were doing it, they were excited about it. Which I want to touch on something you said. It's interesting. I didn't think about the pop music, that it really is almost more of an ear thing. But when you think about bands and musicians and people sitting around jamming, or even when some artists create a song, they aren't noting it out for everybody. They're like, oh, I need a bass line here, or I need this here. Let's add that. I listened to somebody on NPR the other day talking about creating their album, and they said, how do you do it? And they're like, well, I have like 2 verses and a chorus, and then the rest of it kind of manifests in the rehearsal process or in the recording the album process. And so, yeah, taking something like that because Sarah Bareilles wrote the music, and she's a pop star, and taking her sort of folk vibey sound, which probably has a little bit of a slight imperfection to it, I guess might be the word.
Probably.
And then noting that and saying, okay, now guys, make it that perfect, perfectly imperfect every time, you know, or to have that, because you can't lose the soul of it.
Right. Or to write it down, right? Because listening to Sarah Bareilles, we refer to her as Sarah.
Yes, of
like
course you
we're
do.
friends now. But listening to her, you don't necessarily think, oh, that's on the and of 3, that's on the and of 4, that's the right. You just feel that. But then when you have to write it down so that somebody else can do it the same way,
Right.
somewhere else, it becomes tricky to read.
Well, and does that play a part also in how it's performed? Because like, if you think about when pop artists cover other songs, like if somebody else is doing, I don't know, a song by Prince, and they make it their own. I mean, of course, we have within the confines of what we can do. We're not going to like turn it into something totally random,
Right.
But you get to bring a little bit of your individuality to it as well. How you perform the song is just as important.
And on one level, I encourage singers to do that. What I say to them in the process is, learn the notes the way it is, and then you can do what you want to with it. But first, you have to know what it says on the paper. And of course, when you're ensemble, you can't do what you want. You have to follow everybody else when you're in the ensemble.
Which is interesting because that's like, again, thinking in the pop world, like that's the Supremes, not Diana Ross.
Right, exactly.
And the Supremes have to
or
give
the
us
Pips, not Gladys Knight.
Right. And you have to give us that sound, but we're also looking for individuality. We want to know each of your names and why you're there. And so that's an interesting challenge with a show like this. I would think. I would assume. I mean, the closest thing I've possibly done is maybe like Rent. I think kind of has that. But even Rent, while it's kind of labeled a rock musical, is really very Broadway.
Yes.
It was written by somebody who had that ear, and so they were trying to.
Well, and we believe Sarah Bareilles did the vocal arrangements. We can't find an arranger's name or somebody else's name in the score. Now, we could be completely wrong about that. And if that person's listening to this podcast, I'm sorry. They should have put your name in the score. But from what we can tell, Sarah did the arrangements herself. So that's really interesting.
Well, and that might also be the fact this is kind of exciting news for us. We are the only community theater in the state of Tennessee that's doing the show,
Wow.
and only one of 3 theaters in the state of Tennessee doing the show. The scripts that we got and the music that we got, it looks very much like the old generic food in the when you go to the grocery store and it was just like labeled beans and it was just a black and white cover. That's what the scripts for this show look like. There is no art on it. There is nothing exciting really about it. And it says at the top something like, first generation or something. It says something, there's wording at the top that kind of implies like this isn't the final product.
Right.
So it's possible that something like that got lost in the process at this moment. But
Sure. But it's been interesting. And so the music is not hard vocally, like to hear it. And so they were able to learn it pretty quickly. It is complicated at times because there'll be, so I'm going to be technical musically for just a minute. There's a soprano line, alto line, tenor, bass, but sometimes there'll be 2 soprano lines or 3 men's lines, and you have to like looking at who. And I try really hard to like, here's who we have. Where do they need to? Which part of this do they need to sing in so that they'll sound the best and they'll be the most comfortable with what they have to sing.
right.
So that's the tricky part of this score.
So, and just for helping people again, kind of at home who might not understand, it's a little bit like choir practice.
Yes,
in the
very much.
beginning, at
Yes.
least. But imagine if your choir then had to get up and start doing movement that and
Right.
creating a character to tell
Yes.
this song,
Yes.
or sing this song, or tell this story. So
Yeah.
it's different levels, and so we generally starting here, we start with like a week or 2 of just music rehearsal and get that under our belts, and then we start adding choreography so that people can have time to get that in their bodies, and then we start blocking.
Yep.
And blocking, for people that don't know, is when we decide what's happening on stage when they're not singing and dancing. Like, you're going to move over here, you're going to sit down there.
Well, and I love the choir practice comparison because when we learn the music, we sit with people who sing the same part that we do. But when you're in the show, somebody was talking to me yesterday that they sit away from everybody else who sings the same thing that she's singing. And she's all by herself in a corner, and the other people singing what she's singing are in the other part of the stage. So you have to be confident enough to sing your part by yourself.
Right, because you don't know once that choreography starts happening, because you're the same height as somebody, or you need to do a certain busy thing, lift or whatever. You may not be in your section anymore.
Right.
we don't block it or choreograph it by section.
No.
So you really have to know your part. And the other difference is a lot of times in choir practice, especially church, you get the music in front of you. So
Yes.
you're having to memorize the notes too.
Yep.
Which, I mean, for me, I don't read music, so I have to memorize it. I have to learn it by ear. But for some folks, that I think is a challenge, because if they're used to choir where they can
Hold the music.
hold the music, it's different. So we mentioned a little bit about like how exciting this is. Did you guys know anything about Waitress before you came into it?
No, I had not.
No.
No.
So you're not like really a theater person, you're a dance person.
Dance person.
Jenison.
I am familiar with a handful of musicals, and I enjoy them.
Like what? Tell us a musical that you're familiar with so that we can see where on the musical theater scale you
Or
fall.
we can put it on the schedule for next year.
Right.
Okay. Well, my first musical I was involved with was at Covenant College. And I helped my dance teacher in the choreography process. He set the work on the college kids at the time. So it was actually Hello Dolly.
Okay.
They got something mixed up with the rights, so it ended up being the Broadway project. So we did a snippet of Hello Dolly, and then a snippet of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, a snippet of Sweeney Todd. I think there was some Wicked in there. So that was just like a big hodgepodge of shows. So I really did enjoy Hello Dolly. Ended up seeing that on Broadway about 10 years later. And I loved it. I saw Bette Midler. She's an icon. So I do enjoy that one. I recently just saw The Great Gatsby.
Oh, okay. I saw that too
last
recently.
month, and I loved it. And I don't know if that gives you any insight at all.
So you're,
I saw Cats.
you're a
That
baby
one was
musical theater
okay.
person. You're
Yeah.
kind of you have some Cats that's a big one.
Yeah, that's
Hello Dolly's a big one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great Gatsby's a new one, so you're kind of baby stepping
like
through.
I'm in the mainstream world.
Yes, yes.
And then the smaller tier ones I'm not as familiar with. I remember in college taking a theater class and watching Death of a Salesman. So I think that one's a little bit more old school, if I remember.
Yes.
So I've
yeah.
seen them, but Legally Blonde was fun. Beauty and the Beast, that one was easy because that one was well known.
Right.
But I enjoy learning the new music from them. So I've been enjoying from any musical, just learning all the music.
That is one of the things a lot of people don't realize. Like they go see, the movie of Hello Dolly is so different than the play.
Sure.
Different songs. I mean, basic general plot, but even some of the plot devices are a little different in the play, and how things shake out is very different. And so, we get sometimes what we get familiar with is not what it started as. Sound of Music is another one. Like that movie almost has nothing to do with the play.
Right.
Like first of all, you can't recreate the Swiss Alps on stage. It's too gorgeous. There's not even if they had a projection behind them the entire time, it still wouldn't be how beautiful the movie is. But so cool. That's good. So if you don't know anything about Waitress, you were like, sure, or
Yeah, I was excited about the opportunity. I think I've been studying musical theater a little bit more. I taught a musical theater class at a youth festival here last year, and just having to describe it to students. What is it? How is it different? How does it stand out in the dance world? It's a major. It is a profession, but musical theater is very specific in that. It can be a few different styles of dance. It's typically jazz dance, but the biggest difference is that it tells a narrative. Or your role is your movement is it's carrying a narrative forward, and then you're also in a story. You have a character, you have props, you have set and costume and things. So it's a storyline, and the dancing. Has to match that. So trying to decipher that and describe that to students, I think over time I've learned that. And I think I now lost what the question was. Oh, Waitress.
that's okay.
So I think just learning, watching other musicals, and being I'm newly fascinated with musical theater. So
Cool.
When I was asked to choreograph another, I was super excited, regardless of what it was.
So what did you do to get ready?
I've watched it several times.
So there is a live capture. We don't really want to
Yeah.
say too much about that because we want people to come see ours, which is live on stage.
Yes.
But they did film it, and it was in movie theaters and stuff. But it was a filmed stage production, which is also unusual. Kind of like what they did with Hamilton a couple of years ago on Disney Plus.
Yeah. I think more musicals should be filmed in that way.
Absolutely.
It's a great way to access it. But
and
I've watched that pro shot a few times, and I've been listening to the music religiously.
And I think they think like Legally Blonde was also live captured. There was a production of it on MTV back in the day when MTV showed music. But there is something. I think people are afraid that if you see it on film, you're not going to want to do it. But back when I was a baby musical theater person, on HBO, they would show, I saw Sunday in the Park with George with Bernadette Peters, which if you haven't seen that, you should see it, and Into the Woods. And Sweeney Todd, actually, there's an amazing live capture with Angela Lansbury. And all it did was make me want to see them live, want to see them in person. It's because there's something different. Even watching a play filmed, there's a big difference in seeing it on stage. It's so exciting. There's something much more exciting about it being right in front of you. And the other thing is, like, while you're watching these things, that is sort of to familiarize yourself with what the concept is or what initially happened. But we're not copying those things when we do. Like, we may steal an idea or two, but we're not doing a step-by-step, note-by-note restaging of it. So we are still making it our own here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And you, John, what was your history with Waitress coming in? What did you know? What did you not know? How did you prepare?
I knew it was by Sarah Bareilles, and I saw it when it was on tour here at Memorial Auditorium. And I like to be a music director sometimes, and I had asked Rodney, could I, what shows are in the season that I could be a music director for? Because, I mean, if there's a role I think I could play, sometimes I'd rather audition than be the music director. But there's nothing. I mean, I don't think I'm right. I can't be any of the characters in Waitress Fortunately, I'm not old enough to be old Joe yet.
Right. You're sort of flattering. It's in between ages.
I'm
You're-
in that
yeah.
middle space.
Yeah.
But so I just asked Rodney. I said, I'd like to be a music director. Could I be for Waitress? And at the same time that was happening, I was playing the piano at Baylor for Beauty and the Beast with Beth. Wow, that's a lot of bees there. And so she was kind of saying to Rodney, why don't you ask John to be the music director for Waitress? And I'm saying to Rodney, can I be the music director for Waitress? So that kind of all fell into place and happened pretty quickly once all those decisions were made. So, and then I've listened to it. I watched the pro shot. I don't love to listen to musicals when I'm working on them because I don't want to ever accidentally copy what they're doing. I know a lot of singers will listen to the music to help them learn it, which is fine. But then I always say to them when I'm a music director, don't just do your version of Sarah Bareilles. Do your version of you playing that character. And so I would say there should come a point when you stop listening to the recording and start being yourself.
Oh, for sure. For sure. When you watched it, like either at the memorial or on the live capture or whatever, what drew you to it? What made you say, because I mean, you could have at least said that, at that point, even not knowing it, been like, this isn't for me. What do you like about it? What appealed to you about it?
One of the things, I'll go first. One of the things I liked was the interaction of the band with the cast, which is unusual. Usually the orchestra's in a pit or not seen at all. We pretend they don't exist. There's just music somewhere. But I thought that was really interesting, that the band, that there's a number where the bass player comes out on stage and plays bass while they're acting in front of him. And another scene, the guitar player does the same thing. So I thought that was really clever and interesting. Because when I see a show, part of me is enjoying the show. Part of me is also analyzing it as a musician. But the show and the story itself is just really, really a lovely story about these three women and how they find community with each other in what could be in really unpleasant surroundings. But it is a very hopeful musical, and that's nice.
What about you, Jenison?
I enjoyed the comedic twist that it has. It is it can get a little heavy at times, but there are some lighthearted comedy moments. There's a tender relationship between the three leads, which I really enjoyed. Just that friendship and, like John said, community, I think really stood out to me. And then just being from Chattanooga, I think, is a small town in itself. And so I think I related to that kind of small town aspect of the show itself. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and it says in the script that it's the diners on Highway 27, which is here in Chattanooga.
That's very cool. I wonder if that's because we don't really say in the script where we are, other than Highway 27.
Right.
But I wonder, we have talked a little bit in production meetings about where we are and sort of being ambiguous about that as well. Because kind of mentioned Springfield, which I think is mentioned in the play too, right? And we talked about the fact that Springfield, they picked it for The Simpsons because every state has a Springfield,
Right,
so everybody could hone The Simpsons. And there might be a little bit of that in this too. It's just, it's one of those interstate diners that, or I guess probably more of a highway diner than an interstate. That you would be going through a small town and be like, oh, we need to stop for lunch. Let's go here.
Yeah. I don't think it can be in New England because Dr. Palmer's from Connecticut, and there's a comment by Nurse Norma that maybe you can get away with that in Connecticut. So we're not in Connecticut.
Right.
But we could be anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I know the Broadway productions I've seen, the characters typically have a Southern accent. Sometimes they're not real Southern accents. They're Broadway's version of that. And I've had actors say to me, do you want us to have a Southern accent? And I'm like, no, just be yourself.
Right. Well, funny, we won't tell them, but I love when Southerners put on a Southern accent, and I'm like, oh, honey, you just talk that way.
Yeah.
You don't have to pretend.
No. Just do yourself.
It's I have a friend who talks about someone playing Scrooge, and he was 70, and he was walking all hunched over and shuffling around, and it's You're actually Scrooge's age, so
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
just-
just act like yourself. It's fine. You don't have to put anything on, you know. Hopefully a little bit fun. I want to ask you. So, are you guys dessert people? Do you like sweets?
I'm a huge dessert person.
Yep.
It's my weakness.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's because you could burn off the calories.
Maybe.
I have to consider it all.
Yeah.
But so pie or cake? Which one's your preference?
You know, I'm cake. I have to say cake.
Are you cake?
Yeah.
I normally would say cake, but there are some pies I really like. Moderate answer there.
So okay, so if I like said, okay, we're going to order pie, what pie would you want right now? What's your favorite pie? What is something that appeals to you?
I think anything with maybe some sort of warm fruit jelly filling. I don't care for the cold pudding pies. So something warm and
So you like fruit, so you like it
Fruity,
tart,
jammy tart,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
I would. I'm all about like a blackberry pie or something like that. But I'm also really, I'm a good friend of a chocolate mousse pie or a chocolate pudding pie, something like that.
And in this
Because
play,
it's chocolate. So
well, there you go. And in this play, Jenna has these almost like dream sequences where she creates pies that are based on her life or what she's going through in that moment. So if you were to create your own recipe for a pie, this may take a second. This may be too much of a deep thought question, but let's start here. So these are what you like, but what pie would you be if you could be a pie? Like if you were to magically Disney-fied become a pie. What pie would you be? And then you can also be thinking back in your head about the recipe for your creation of pie.
that's a good question.
that is a good
We
question.
might have to ask the cast that question
We should ask
this
the
week.
cast.
It's
Taking
definitely a
some
getting
thought.
to know you question with them, so they'll all the lemons can be together,
That's right.
and all the chocolates can be together. While you're thinking, I have to tell you the story, so that I don't know why this comes to mind, but I used to back in my childhood, in the late 70s and early 80s, we would go to the grocery store and there were Dolly Madison pies, which had Charlie Brown characters on them. So the appeal for me was Charlie Brown characters because I was obsessed as a kid, and my mom would be like, they would be like 2 for $1 or 3 for $1, something like that. And so I would get to pick the pies, and I would sit and obsess over them. And of course, I would pick them based on the character, not on the flavors that I liked. But so mine was, I loved Lucy. Ironically, she was not the character you're supposed to love, but Lucy was a lemon pie, and so lemon pie I always associate with that Dolly Madison.
Okay.
Moment of like, there's 12 different pies. Which flavor am I going to pick? So are you a Lucy Lemon? Are you a Charlie Brown chocolate? What are you?
Oh, thanks.
I can go.
Yeah, you go ahead if you've got one. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Maybe I'm gonna go with a seasonal pie.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So I'm torn between pumpkin pie and pecan pie because, those are both seasonal.
Yes.
I enjoy autumn and Thanksgiving and all that.
Uh-huh.
That's
Okay.
not why I'm choosing it though. But I'm trying to think.
So what about you?
Me as a personality, right? I don't think I want to go with pumpkin because I don't think I'm very plain textured. So I think pecan because I'm multi-textured. And then hopefully I think I have a lot of energy. So I think pumpkin pie maybe gives that sort of energy.
you got
also like warm and cozy.
right.
You know,
I like it.
A little bit of both.
And there's a little sweetness, and then you also
Yeah.
have a little, like you said, texture. Like I like a coconut pecan pie.
Yeah.
When there's coconut in there, I know people hate coconut, but
Yeah.
I
don't
love
think
it.
anything sour would not be me. I don't think I'm very sour. So I don't think it'd be key lime, even though my favorite
Love.
color is green.
Oh, interesting.
So that's what I got. Let's go with pecan.
Pecan pie.
Pecan.
Pecan.
Can, depending on where you're from. I think I would say I'm an apple pie that has another fruit hidden inside so that you think it's just an apple pie. I think people see me as pretty standard, pretty boring, pretty
Traditional.
And they're surprised when they find out other things about me. So there would be a apple pie with a blueberries or cherries in it.
I like that. That is cool. And that I will say, like, if I'm eating an apple pie, I love if it's got like a a streusel or if there's a twist in it, like cranberries or something like that.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like that best.
Yeah.
Cranberry, that's a very good choice.
Yeah. Very nice. All right, so if you could create a pie recipe that like Jenna does in the play, I mean, would it be the oh my God, waitress rehearsal pie? What would it be?
I think it would be, for me, it would be maybe beautiful berry medley.
Oh, okay.
Because for me, Waitress has been this nice, beautiful sound the ensemble makes, and I think it has a real beauty to it, and it's because of the mixture of the berries, not just a blueberry or a cherry right? It's the mixtures of the berries.
Nice. What about you, Jenison?
I'm going to call mine, it takes me forever to unwind pie.
I love it. That's awesome.
I get, especially the first two rehearsals, I was so excited after rehearsal. I typically am that way. I get, I don't know how to describe it in words.
Energized.
Energized. I get super energized, especially when a rehearsal goes well, or you've been sitting on these thoughts for a long time and you finally get them out and you have bodies and you see it and it is well received. So it took me a very long time, and still last night I will need some melatonin. I had a glass of wine. I have to watch a show, but I cannot think about rehearsal. I want to go home and watch the videos and upload them, and so I learned I can't do that. I have to.
Especially you're getting back into school now, so
right. So
of course.
I have to be up early, so that's going to be my pie in the process.
I don't know if people realize we rehearse generally like 7:30 to 10:30. So even if you I've called a rehearsal early, like, okay, let's get out of here. Because we do start, like, after 10 o'clock, people just generally start to kind of peter out a little bit. But no matter how pooped you are, you go home and you're like, well, I guess I could eat this can of Pringles and watch the Great British Bake Off.
Yep.
And three episodes in, you're like, oh, I guess I should go to bed now. Yep. Because I don't know what it is, if it's just like we're using different parts of our brain in rehearsal or what, but wired is like an understatement when you leave. You know, it's like you're like you feel like you have that strength that you could lift a car off of someone, you know, because it's just so exciting.
I think part of it's the process, because theater is a collaborative art. And so the interaction between the choreographer and the dancers and the singers and Beth, the director, I mean, it's really interesting to watch and very energizing. And because we are artists, I mean, we're getting to do what we love to do. I love to do the things I do at my regular job, but I mean, here I get to be a musician and do things that I don't get to do other places. And so that's very exciting.
I think for many people, their hobby probably relaxes them in some way. And this doesn't. It hypes you up. It does the opposite. It is like drinking 7 cups of coffee, you know, at 7:30 at night. So another little thing I wanted to try, I came across this quote and I thought it was really interesting, and I wanted your reaction to it and how it kind of relates to Waitress. But Ethel Merman said, "I can hold a note as long as the Chase National Bank." And when she made her star debut I guess it's not debut, but the show that made her a star was George Gershwin's Girl Crazy. And in the second chorus of I Got Rhythm, she held a high C note for 16 bars while the orchestra played the melodic line underneath. She said, by the time I had held the note for 4 bars, the audience was applauding. They applauded through the whole chorus, and I did several encores. It seemed to do something to them, not because it was sweet or beautiful, but because it was exciting. And what I loved about that, and I've thought about it actually since seeing Great Gatsby on Broadway, is it feels like, and Waitress does feel a little bit this way for me, is we're getting a little further away from those old musicals where you if you see Sound of Music once, you immediately know all the lyrics to Do Re Mi. You know, there's just some even Edelweiss. People think it's like this old folk song and they've known it forever, and it's not. It was written for that musical. You know, but we're kind of getting into a territory where like you leave and you're like, even if it was fun and it was good, always good. Like especially Broadway, you're seeing people at the top of their craft, but it's not exciting in the same way. And so what is exciting about Waitress, and what is something, I mean, of course we hope the vocals are stunning. We hope the movement is stunning, but what about it that is exciting for us as an audience? Sorry, I'm asking the deep questions.
Yeah, no,
I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. I think one of the things that is exciting, and this is a performative piece of it, but the singing and the dancing and the way it all comes together is exciting. There are some really funny, upbeat moments that are kind of funny and energizing. But I think at the same time, on a deeper level, there's some satisfaction that you see some people in possibly bad situations able to be redeemed and find hope and come out of that. And that's not like Hello Dolly kickline exciting, but it's an emotional journey that we get to go on in that show. And I think it's a very satisfying journey.
Yeah, I agree. I think emotional journey is a good way to describe it, like John said. The tenderness, the friendship that's happening between the three leads, they share intimate details about their life with one another throughout the show, and you see that they rely and count on each other for emotional support, and then also as their life changes as well, or as aspects of their life change, they remain closely bonded, I think, which is special. So I think the story is exciting in that way. Satisfactory is also a great way to describe it, because I do think the story has many levels of emotion in it. The music also helps, I think, with kind of carries you along. I love John's response about the music and the dance and the story. This story is unique in that a lot of the movement is intertwined in the transitions. So it's less about, blackout, there's a scene change, you see backstage crew taking things on and off. But there's a lot more flow within the ensemble and their roles within moving set pieces on and off. And lots of transitions and table turnover as if it were a real diner. So I think just hopefully the audience can feel like they can fully be immersed in the story because of the storyline itself. I think there are relatable moments in them, but then the music is great too. I really enjoy the music, and the dancing will be great too.
Well, and the actors, our volunteer pool was really excited about it. Obviously, we had over 150 people sign up. We had about 130 actually audition. Some folks backed out. I think people get excited and they sign up, and then the day happens and they're like, "I'm not ready.
Right. There were two men who came to the audition and learned the song and then left. They did not sing it. They learned it in the group and left before they sang it as alone.
Right. It can be really intimidating.
It is.
But I think the excitement is certainly there amongst our volunteers if we have 130 folks come and want to be a part of this too. And there obviously is an excitement to the story. I mean, it's really appealing, I think, to younger people, high school students and 20-somethings. But it's based on a movie from the early 2000s that I saw when it was an independent film. So even when they made it into a musical, I was like, what? Yeah. That's weird. But yeah, have either of you ever worked in a restaurant situation as a waiter? Yes.
I have.
And there's something weird. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I guess this kind of happens with every job, but when you are waiters together, you do have these like little snippets of sharing each other's lives and heartbreaks and carpools and all of these things. And then everybody drifts apart. It's like being on a ship together. And then you get a job and somebody moves to a different shift, and that like throws you off completely because now you don't have your work wife anymore with you.
Right.
But yeah, and I didn't think about it until you were talking about that, but I do think it does kind of capture that feeling of camaraderie that you have on a job. But particularly wait staff, it is different because you're kind of all hustling. I mean, it's
Well, they're all in a job that they're serving other people, and they have to be that person to their customer, but we're getting to see who they are when they're not with their customers,
Right.
which is it's like getting to see a doctor when he's not being the doctor, or getting to see, somebody off stage or in the wings.
right. And there's also, I mean, I will say again, using kind of the ship metaphor, when you're wait staff, everybody kind of has to work together or the ship doesn't go. Like you do have to pick up other people's tables, and you have to, get these plates out for somebody else, and all of that. So there is a weird camaraderie and team relationship that you have in a diner situation or a restaurant situation that's different. It's kind of cool. Okay, so next, the other fun thing I want to do. Other fun thing I want to do is just sort of do like a question roulette.
Okay.
So there'll be a stack. We'll take one question from each stack. This is the personal questions.
Oh.
They're not too personal. Don't worry.
Isn't there a podcast that does this, that they turn over, they give, like, you have cards and you turn over a question and you have to, you don't know what's on the cards, but you turn them over and you have to answer them. I think somebody does that.
Maybe. I thought
Four
I did
questions might be the
I thought
name
I
of
had
the
come
podcast.
up with this on my own.
While you're doing that, I remember I have an answer for a question from earlier.
Okay, yay.
Yay! Answer the earlier question.
I think something about excitement for the audience and excitement as the choreographer, the use of props and consumables, I think is what we call it in production meetings, maybe.
Well, that's because now
Condiments
edibles
or-
mean something else,
Yeah.
so we
Right.
can't say that.
Yeah. Actual flour and things will be used, but just how many props we use is exciting to me. Personal note, I feel like I'm a prop lady. When I was growing up as a kid, I used to constantly be getting in trouble for messing with props. So I was fascinated with them, touching them. I broke a couple. Sorry, Valley, Tennessee. And as an adult and as a young choreographer, I tended to like things that I could hold and use and pass. And so I've been really excited to be able to use an infinite amount of props in the show. Coffee carafes and cups and a bouquet of flowers and
Yep.
costume props with an apron, and it's been really exciting. So I think the audience will probably notice a lot of things are happening in their hands and check orders and
Well, and
Yeah.
the baking is going to be a whole different level.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, there's some pies that have to be eaten, and then they're mixed. There's also pies that are not eaten that we will have fake pie, and
Yep.
yeah, it's kind of crazy. You hit on something, and I feel if nothing else, we have to be educational as well. You're not supposed to touch other people's props. It's the first rule in theater.
Right.
And I always tell the kids this, like it's horrible because, with kids, we're always like, do as I say, not as I do. And I was bad too as a kid. I know I was. Actually, here in this theater, I saw a production of Wait Until Dark. And in Wait Until Dark, they have a switchblade. And it's supposed to look like a naked lady, and then the switchblade comes out. Well, we were messing around backstage where we were not supposed to be. I was not a part of Wait Until Dark. And I was like, oh, I know what this is. And I remember being a little surprised at the naked lady that was just a Barbie doll that had been kind of like secured around this switchblade. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. But again, trying to demonstrate to everybody that I knew something that they didn't, I hit the little part that makes the switchblade come out. And I thought naturally that the switchblade would come out of the neck of the Barbie doll. It did not. It came out of the legs, and those were pointed toward me. So it literally touched my stomach. And I remember, like, all of us panicked immediately.
Oh my gosh.
And we're like, oh my God. Because someone could have really gotten hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just a miracle. So I always use that story to illustrate to the kids, like, hey,
Listen.
just because you think you know.
Right.
Like, I had seen the play. I thought I knew how to operate it. But, from 20 feet away, you can't tell which end the switchblade is coming out of. So always, just, and if it's not yours, don't touch it, just in general. That's that's a good life lesson for everything, right?
Right.
True.
If it's not yours, don't touch it, period.
Yep.
All right. So this stack is personal questions, and this is a professional question. So each of you take a card from each stack, and we'll answer those and see what did you get.
So my personal question says, who is an actor or actress I admire and why?
I didn't say favorite because
Right.
I have like 100 favorites.
Sure.
And it changes on a daily basis. So that's why I tried to keep it open.
Yeah.
I can answer mine if you
Go
want to.
for a minute.
What is yours? What is your personal one?
I think it's personal. I think I got the mix up. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
That's personal.
Okay. I thought so.
Because as a teacher, you have to be an extrovert.
Yes.
You know that comes,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you are one.
Personally one.
Right.
I feel like the older I'm getting, the more introverted I'm becoming. I think naturally I'm extroverted. I enjoy being social. I have a very large capacity for social interaction. My husband is opposite, so he always talks about social battery and how things drain him, but I don't ever feel that way. I think my people and my community fuel me. So, yeah, I think I'm extroverted. I'm going with it. But I feel like I can be introverted at times. Depends on the day.
I can see both. I mean, like just in my little bit of interaction with you, I don't think it's necessarily you're introverted, but I do see you listen very well. You're a good listener, which
Thank you.
is, you know, I like you kind of assess the situation more than like comment on the situation. And
That's where I feel like I can be introverted.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Agreed.
but if you're not exhausted by that, then no, you're a total extrovert.
Right.
See, it exhausts me to listen and
Okay.
yeah.
It exhausts me to contribute more.
Yeah, it exhausts me
maybe
to put
that's
on
why I
clothes and
listen.
leave the house, to be honest. I was very good at COVID lockdown. It's like maybe the happiest I've ever been in my life. I was,
It's a time.
if I could find a way to make that work for me, I would be.
It's difficult to do theater, though, in that situation.
It is. All right, John,
Okay, so my
who's your
actor,
actor?
actress, honestly, I'm going to go with the first person who came to my mind because is Russ Tamblyn, who played Riff in West Side Story, the musical.
Oh, and he just recently passed away.
Right. And he also was the youngest brother in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yes.
And then his daughter, Amber Tamblyn, was in a TV show.
There's something she recently came up because I didn't realize that was his daughter.
Yeah.
But when he passed away, she was
Yeah.
in his
And
obit. And I was
she
like,
was somebody who heard the voice of God or something. I can't even remember, but the TV show
maybe
was.
Joan of Arcadia.
Yes, that's it. Way to go. Good job, Scott. And I admired him as a singer, dancer person and just his athleticism as a dancer. I also really love Gene Kelly for the same reason. These are old, long ago people, but I was always on Team Gene Kelly as opposed to Team Fred Astaire because I just liked his dance style better.
Well, and I mean, this is my opinion, but Gene Kelly just seemed happier. Fred Astaire seemed like debonair or whatever, but it wasn't, especially when you're a kid, it was more like, well, that one seems happy and he seems like he's having more fun. And all the athleticism of his dance was very different than Fred Astaire's sort of.
I mean, there's a dance number that in some movie that Gene Kelly did on roller skates that's just amazing to watch and fascinating. But yeah, that's who came to my mind when I read that card.
Awesome.
Not somebody I would have predicted.
All right. What is your professional question?
What is your favorite thing about what you do?
So I guess that's like not just, I mean, I guess that's like your daily job. Like what do you like best about your daily?
I think ultimately I enjoy my students, connecting with my students and watching them grow and develop over time. I think that's been what I keep coming back to as an educator is the bond that is created with my students, being able to share my passion for dance. I think I love dance so much because of my teachers. So I really feel like being that figure for my students is important to me. So I think mostly I've worked with young students. So this is one of the first few times that I've worked with adults. So I'm sure that bond will be different. It may be closer to
They're
a
all the
friendship
same.
or
I
not.
don't care
but,
how old they are, they're the same.
It's really great to build relationships with students.
Well, the thing is, like, and I'm sort of kidding, but I'm sort of not. even adults in this particular situation, particularly I think with Waitress, you're talking about people who are being very vulnerable in that moment, and that in a way is like a student-teacher relationship.
Yeah.
You know, is you have someone who's vulnerable, who's open to learning, who's trying to learn, and you know, trying to be better at something.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, and I have 2 mentors in my life, and I think that I look to be that person for someone else too. So I think that would be my favorite.
And you, sir, what did you get?
I got what profession other than your own would you like to attempt? So since I'm not professionally a musician, I could say I would love to be a musician as a profession.
Although I mean, sometimes you're paid to do it.
Yeah, that's a sneaky way around that
right,
question.
right.
But I'm not very good at it. But I think it's really interesting to see people work with carpentry and woodworking and building things. I think that's real. My son-in-law can do that, and it's just fascinating to me. I'm not precise enough to do that, really, but I guess I could learn, maybe.
I mean, I think so, but there is an artistry to it,
Yes.
and I think it is interesting. There's something people who do it also seem to be very calm,
Yeah.
and like patient. 2 things that I'm not, calm or patient. But yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I think you would be good at it. I think because you are calm. You have control most of the time.
Most
I
of
think.
the time, I do.
And
True.
you are patient. You're very patient. I think you get that from being a teacher too.
Yeah. True.
You know.
You have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not, but you know.
Well, and I want to say when you were talking about being vulnerable and mostly working with kids, and for whatever reason, people are afraid of dance.
Right.
And so you almost have to treat them like they're kids because they're afraid of moving, and that takes people out of their comfort zone.
Well, they go to that fight or flight response.
Especially as an adult.
Yeah.
too, and,
Right.
it is very vulnerable. And
Well, and even singing too. I was thinking about that too. Like, ask a 5-year-old to sing, and they will sing you all sorts of songs. But ask a 12-year-old to sing, and they'll tell you they can't.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so weird. Like, where does that button switch in our heads? You know, and it's horrible. There was a kid who was stage managing Finding Nemo, and I was like, why didn't you audition? Because he was singing along with all the
Right.
songs, and I said, why didn't you audition? I can't sing. It's like, you're literally singing right now. You're sitting beside me singing. So you would be fine.
Well, and
know.
people like Sarah Bareilles is a singer. So a lot of the people who come to that audition are people who feel okay singing in public.
Right.
But they're afraid of dancing for whatever
Right.
reason. And I'm sure there are dancers who wouldn't sing. That
We
would be
have
out
had
of their
that.
comfort zone.
Yeah, we've had when we did Oklahoma, which you were in.
I was.
We had Chattanooga Ballet did the ballet, the Dream Ballet, and they were all forced to audition. All the dancers from there had to come over here and audition.
Yep.
So they had to go through the process with everybody else, even though they were already kind of cast. As we knew that we had to approach them and said we need professional dancers to do this, but they still had to come over and audition. So they were kind of petrified. So
Yeah.
it gave them a little chance to be in somebody else's shoes for a minute.
yeah.
Which is nice. I think everybody should experiment, like especially with the arts. Be in a play. My mom did it like years ago, and she was like, "Oh my God, I finally understand." Like seriously, she was like, "I thought you were just obsessed," and it's like, no, it takes over your life. Like you go home and you can't sleep, and you're preparing everything, whether it's like feeding the dog or doing your clothes, just so you can get back to rehearsal because everything is about rehearsal or performance. You know, it really is all encompassing, and you can't turn it off.
No. And then it will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
It will.
Right.
It
Just
absolutely
be
will.
singing those songs forever.
Yeah. And you'll have hopefully really good memories that go
memories.
with it. You know, there are some that are more painful at times, but yes. A couple of things real quick. I want to do some housekeeping before we sign off. But right now we are encouraging. Well, first of all, Waitress will play September 13th through the 30th. On the main stage at the Chattanooga Theater Center. You can call for tickets at 423-267-8534, or you can visit our website at theatercenter.com. That's theater with an R-E and center with an R-E. We are currently signing up for school performances. If you are a teacher and you're interested in bringing your class to see a show, we have a great youth theater season. This fall we have Tuck Everlasting. We have Rolled Dolls. Willy Wonka that we were presenting over the holiday season. After Christmas, we have The True Story of the Three Little Pigs. And in the spring, we have Disney's 101 Dalmatians Kids. And we are booking for those shows right now. We have special shows during the day that you can bring your class to. So we encourage you to do that as well. But hopefully we will see you at Waitress. Thank you very much, Jenison and John, for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.